We can't see out of these.
Oh no.
There are few cartoons that lend themselves to discussions as broadly or as easily as the Total Drama series. With simple characters, plentiful drama, and an absolute roller coaster of quality, it's always a fun one to talk about. And it got us thinking, how can we combine all three of those aspects into one topic? The answer is simple, a discussion of the various ships throughout the Total Drama series. Which ones deserve the $1 million prize, and which ones need to take the dock-slash-hurl-slash-flush of shame. I'm Keefe Nosy with Wicked Binge, and this is our first installment of Total Drama Ships, Sink, Swim, or Sail. For this video, we're going to be talking about some of the most beloved and infamous ships in the Total Drama fandom. With literally like 100 characters in the series, not every ship will be present in this video, so let us know which ones you want to hear our takes on if they're missing here. Oh, and spoilers for every season of Total Drama, except for 2023, which I'll refrain from including here since it's not out in the USA yet. Now, we've come up with 5 categories to sort these ships into. There's the Sink category for ships we just don't like, the Sail category for ships we do like, and the Swim category for the ones we've got mixed or lukewarm feelings towards. Additionally, there are 2 special categories, Shipwrecked for the worst of the worst, and 5-star cruise for the best of the best. Might as well kick it off with the ship you could consider the first in the series, Gwen and Trent. In Season 1, Gwen was more or less the main protagonist, making Trent the de facto main love interest. Yet despite this, it's one of the less talked about ships in the series. Why is that? Maybe it's because Gwen has other, more interesting ships under her belt. Maybe it's because Trent is the most boring character in Season 1 and the most annoying character in Season 2? Is that true? The answer to this question is yes. Yes, it is because of those things.
Aw, shoot. So close.
This one sinks, not just canonically, it's just not a ship anyone's begging to happen, especially considering that Gwen is one of the best Total Drama characters and Trent is pretty dang generic. If nothing else, their banter in the aftermath episodes of World Tour seems to imply that they're on friendly terms, and that's nice. But considering Trent's extreme White Knight arc in action, these two just don't click on any level beyond that. From one vanilla ship to the next, we're moving on to Revenge of the Island to talk about Mike and Zoe. Now, I know that most people don't like Zoe all that much, and I know the Total Drama All-Stars was written like a 14-year-old's Mike x Zoe fanfiction, but come on, these two are way too cute not to sail. Mary Sue or not, Zoe is about the sweetest character in the Total Drama franchise, and her relationship with Mike shows this off on a whole other level.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
She's extremely supportive of him and his struggle with dissociative identity disorder, and even helps him come to his senses when Mal takes over his mind temporarily. Throughout all this, she stays loyal to him, and while I'm not arguing that she is a Mary Sue-esque character, that Little Miss Perfect attitude does make her pretty darn, well, perfect for Mike. Oh, Mike's a nice guy too, I guess. Vito might be a two-timer, but Mike's much more devoted, and he pulls through for Zoe at the end of the day. Hopefully they don't go the same route as the previous pair. Vito's not the only cheater we'll be talking about today, though. Let's go ahead and talk about Duncan and Courtney. Almost certainly the most popular ship in the fandom. Duncan and Courtney were an absolute highlight of Total Drama Island. These two balanced each other out perfectly, with Courtney encouraging Duncan's human decency side, and Duncan dragging Courtney out of her obsession with rules to have some fun.
Whatever, he wouldn't leave me alone, weird rabbit.
An absolute highlight of the season for sure, if only it ended there. But they end up breaking up between seasons 1 and 2, and that leads to Duncan trying to get back with her. And this, unfortunately, succeeds, since Duncan fails to see the walking red flag that Courtney devolved into by this point. Seriously, Duncan's not a great guy by any means, but a 1,000-page essay on everything he needs to change about himself? Jesus, Courtney. Oh, and don't you worry, Duncan's not innocent either. He cheats on Courtney in World Tour with Gwen and shows minimal remorse for it, then can't seem to decide between either of them in All-Stars. If this were just season 1 Dunkney, I'd gladly say sail, but given how far they fell and how much worse it gets every time, this one has to swim. I know it's insanely toxic, but I just don't have the heart to pull it into sink since it was so good at the beginning of the series. But if you still think that's a harsh grading, just know I was thinking of calling it an outright shipwreck, but that honor goes to Duncan and Gwen. Here's where we get to the cheater part of the discussion. If there's one scene that everyone remembers from World Tour, this is it. Tyler's reaction is valid, even though Courtney and Duncan are super toxic by this point, and you could argue that they weren't dating at the time.
You stole my boyfriend and became the new Heather?
Come on though, who kisses the boyfriend of a friend you just started getting closer with? It's like Gwen just wanted to ruin her newfound friendship. This is also a perfect time to bring All-Stars back into the discussion, where Duncan introduces enters full-on desperate mode and becomes a simp who would put Cody to shame. Shipwreck, absolutely, no question. That was a disaster of a love triangle, but there's one side of it we haven't connected to. That's right, Gwen and Courtney. While this is our first non-canon ship, it is a pretty popular one in the fandom. It seems that fans enjoy this ship for several reasons. For one, who doesn't love a good enemies to lovers story?
You don't get to cheer!
These two have already had 2 failed attempts at friendship in World Tour and All-Stars, but while things respectively fell flat due to Gwen being a homewrecker and Courtney being Courtney, their friendships seemed genuinely sweet from what we saw, and unlike either of the other ships, these two actually haven't tried being an item yet, plus they have shared trauma on multiple levels. The more I think about it actually, the more I say let it sail. You'll find someone, Duncan, but since we know for sure it's neither of these two, I can't deny I'm a bit curious. Mostly because even if they turn out awful, it'll at least be fun to watch. Wait, am I turning into Chris? Well, before I get existential about it, how about we break off for the one season Chris wasn't in to talk about the Goths. These two are two of the highlights of the Redonkulous race, for reasons including their one-of-a-kind fashion sense, excellent pet ownership, and of course, their adorable dynamic. When their intense makeup gets washed off in one episode, the two learn to love and accept each other for who they are on the inside, even if, as the wiki puts it, they have the emotional expressivity of a gargoyle.
We could try to accept each other the way we are.
It's only every so often you come across such a perfect match, and while the dynamic is far from the most interesting, this is still a ship that has every right to sail. At first, we may well have said the same about Ryan and Steph, the bodybuilders. Initially, they seem like a pretty darn cute couple, enjoying each other's company throughout the race, like really enjoying it. But when they aren't winning, that's when things go downhill. And it's basically all thanks to Steph, who becomes fiercely overcompetitive to the point of bossing and both physically and verbally abusing Ryan.
What's taking you so long? Eat! Eat!
They might put up a good fight in the competition, but they also put up a good fight against each other. Again, mostly on Steph's end, so we've got to say this one is another shipwreck, especially considering how nice they started out and how overtly abusive Steph became. These two needed to put their relationship on the rack for at least a good while. So what have we learned here? That having things in common isn't always the key to a healthy relationship. Just look at Max and Scarlett. Two of the more cartoonish characters in Pakatao Island, these two both make a leap from typical reality TV antagonist to legitimate supervillain. The difference being primarily that while Max is more like a kid playing pretend, Scarlett is legitimately a calculating mastermind. Although Max spends most of the season treating Scarlett as a faithful minion, Scarlett openly despises Max to the point where she was horrified at him being shoved into the cannon with her at elimination. That being said, what if the roles were swapped? What if Scarlett was the main villain and Max was the loyal minion?
Scarlett, you look different.
Even if he's totally incompetent, they could have like a Zim and Gur type dynamic, which really begs the question of whether or not we should go through with shipping them. I'll say swim for this one. While open hatred is a pretty big red flag for the potential of a relationship, it'd at least be fun to see them become friends. Speaking of friends, a quick mention needs to go to the hallmark couple that is Carrie and Devin. Literally the definition of a will they won't they couple, and ultimately they do after about 20 episodes of Carrie's hesitation and Devin's painful obliviousness. Let's just say sail for this one because A, it would be mean to pull these two apart, and B, for the love of God, Carrie, please just tell him how you feel already.
The next time the moment is right, I'm telling him how I feel.
Seriously, we'll give an example. Take some self-confidence lessons from the true Giga Chad of the series, Harold and Lashana. While they never became an official item, it's clear that there's chemistry between these two. Harold is intensely devoted to Lashana to the extent of writing her a cheesy love poem on live television and even naming his pet snail Lashana Jr. Jerry the snail who?
Lashana, I meant every word of that poem.
Lashana actually likes Harold too, though. She admits in an Aftermath episode of Action that she does like him, but doesn't feel ready for a relationship with him. That said, she displays some level of loyalty, and despite occasionally teasing him, she goes as far as to apologize to Harold when she swoons for Alejandro in World Tour. Given just how darn confident and skillful both of these two are, there's no telling where they'll go with their mad, bootylicious skills combined. Set these two on a 5-star cruise, specifically to make up for how Lashana was robbed in season 1. And if you're wondering, yes, I am going to bring that up every time I get the chance to. There's nothing like seeing the geek get the girl. As long as it isn't Cody and Sierra, that is. Whether you love or hate Sierra, it's hard to deny that her behavior towards Cody is a little unsettling at best and literally predatory at worst. She's physically assaulted him multiple times, tried to force him into marriage, and when Cody rightfully tried to vote her off, she guilt-tripped him for it. Cody said it best. Sierra is the stalker chick he thought he always wanted until he actually got one. Oh, the teenage mind. Shipwreck doesn't doesn't even do this one justice, honestly. There's a difference between a couple that's simply toxic and one that's literally criminal behavior. Have a seat, Sierra. While we're on the topic of World Tour, let's go ahead and talk about the other newbie, Alejandro. And don't make an Ala Tyler joke, Alejandro and Heather. Of course, the two biggest evils in total drama would be damn near perfect for each other, right? Well, you would think, but Chris and Alejandro never actually became a thing, so we've got Al and Heather instead. With these two, we return to the enemies to lovers trope, emphasis on enemies, since Alejandro successfully usurps Heather as total drama's most evil and manipulative contestant, at least at the time. Honestly, although you wouldn't catch me dead with either of them in real life, their dynamic is actually pretty great. Seriously, that "This Is How We Will End It" song alone bumps them up a lot. Alejandro respects Heather more than any other competitor, and Heather's willing to pull out all the stops against him, which is more or less her own signal of respect. Let this one sail, I say. Since they're two of the least butchered characters in All Stars, and since they aren't in our world, we don't have to worry about them inevitably taking over our world. We just get to enjoy watching them do it to their own. We're down to our last two ships for this video, and since we already name dropped him, it'd be wrong not to give Chris some action, right? Enter Chris and Chef. Oh, it exists, alright. And whether you love it or hate it, there's no doubt these two at least enjoy each other's company. In the finale of Total Drama Action, when Chef temporarily quits, Chris is heartbroken, which not only gives us the shocking reveal that he has a heart, but confirms that it only beats for Chef. Oh, you're not buying it? Well, let me direct you to this scene. The eye roll, the awkward transition, the embarrassed finger rubbing on the bench.
So, were you doing anything after work?
The fact that he literally has Chef wear a dress multiple times. There's no doubt that Chris wants this relationship to get cooking, but what about Chef? Well, being the war-hardened man he is, Chef doesn't seem overly interested in the prospect of dating, especially considering his lack of, well, any reaction in the aforementioned scene. But maybe he just needs to have his own moment of clarity to make him realize just how much he wants Chris to be the host of his life, and they can grow old and recap all their fondest memories together. Let it sail, and let me sail to the last ship for today, because I'm alarmingly not even sure if I'm joking around anymore. We've talked about many beloved ships today, but there's one that's so infamous we just couldn't avoid giving it a mention too. It's quite possibly the most hated total drama ship in existence. It's Skye and Dave. Already, this one doesn't have the best framework. Skye has the personality of an orange peel, and Dave is basically a more annoying, less funny version of Noah. But that doesn't mean they can't change each other, right? Of course, they magically make each other worse. Dave goes full on r/nice guys, refusing to take no for an answer and trying his darndest to guilt trip Skye into going out with him, throwing a full-on tantrum when she refuses.
I'll try not to get in your way.
As if she hasn't already refused multiple times. He also eventually tries to kill Skye in the final challenge when he discovers that she had a boyfriend throughout the entire season. This not only elevates Dave from a bit of a creep to an outright psychopath, it proves that Skye isn't entirely innocent herself. Imagine being this boyfriend and seeing your girlfriend, who you love dearly, cheat on you on live television. This one is an absolute train wreck. Yeah, not even a shipwreck at this point. Dave threw his shoe into the tracks and the train somehow managed to land in the water. And hopefully we won't land in hot water with you guys for our takes, but the more drama, the better, right? If you want more, don't hesitate to cast your votes in the comments.